Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here, although I have to say that I boarded a flight at 6 p.m. Boston time, landed here at midnight Boston time. And I have a gentleman staring at me. I think it's King William, and he has a sword, and I'll try not to provoke him. Let me take a step back. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering at MIT, and in my past lives, my research lab developed many of the standards behind modern radio frequency ID, Internet of Things. The term was actually coined by an Englishman who used to work with me at MIT, Kevin Ashton. Of course, that was in 1998. Now this term is everywhere. I went away and did my companies, but about 7 years ago, the president of MIT, then provost of MIT, said, we need you to become an adult. So I said, what do you mean? He goes, all the startup stuff, that's great, but we want you to come back. You think you're an innovator, why don't you try and innovate in education? Because that's what we do. So I want to tell you quickly a story of innovation on campus at MIT, and frankly, a movement that, in my view, is and will sweep modern academic activities. Let me start by asking you a question of a piece of trivia. Do you know what the first modern Western university is, from where the tradition comes? Anyone? I'm sorry? Andalusia. Andalusia, very good, yeah. Actually, it's in that region. Anyone else? Letter B? Bologna. University of Bologna. The first Eastern universities, of course, Taxila, which is now in modern-day Pakistan, was a Buddhist university. But the tradition of the modern university today comes from Bologna, 1088 AD. Do you know what a lecture looked like around then? Well, we didn't have cameras, unfortunately, but we did have paintings, and some paintings have survived. And this may look familiar to you. All right, so let's look at that. There's a boring old professor droning on. He has a turban, which as an Indian I'm comfortable with, I have to tell you. There are these two dudes here talking to each other. This gentleman had a late night, and this lady is checking out an iPad, right? And the TA has a beard, which is also fine. Anyway. Bottom line, nothing, ladies and gentlemen, has changed in academia in about 1,000 years. We still live in a system in which the professor sort of rants from a stage and students sleep. I hope you're not doing the same. This is a modern university lecture at MIT. Yet, technologies that have come out of places like MIT have absolutely transformed many industries worldwide. Internet, mobile technologies, digitized products, mass customization, you name it. There's this constant stream of things that universities, professors, graduates of universities, startups foist on the world, and they wipe out entire industries. Yet our own industry has seen very little change. In the hallowed corridors of MIT, it's not like we've seen zero change, okay, we've had some change. In fact, in the hallowed corridors of MIT and Cambridge, we still whisper to each other about the scourge of that technology of 1568 that transformed us, the printing press, or the blackboard, or, by the way, colored chalk, 1814. Really, that's it, okay? The internet hasn't impacted us, mobile hasn't impacted us. We continue to do exactly what we did 1,000 years ago. Now, if you look at the principles of innovation, I had a white paper about this I couldn't attend the conference last year, but I had a white paper. I talked about 3 things that are really transforming innovation, and I study innovation. There are many, many things, but 3 trends that we have to take very seriously. One is the massively parallel nature of innovation today. What I mean by that is you may be in the most steady, top of the hill industry where you think you control your fate. But unknown to you are thousands of innovators in Bangalore and in Rio de Janeiro and in Vilnius and in Boston and in Manchester who are actually competing with you. They have an idea which in some bizarre way impacts your future. You're a cab driver. Everything was going hunky-dory. How can anyone disrupt cabs? And along comes Uber and Lyft, right? Every industry, you're not competing with your direct competitor. You're competing with thousands of people innovating around you. MIT is no different. We're competing with YouTube. Believe it or not, yes, we're competing with YouTube. There are better physics lectures out there on YouTube than sometimes our professors produce, okay? The second thing that's happened is there is a new, I call it tinker, maker, sorter, try. What I mean by that is there's a new set of tools in the hands of engineers that lets them take an idea from conception to reality in lightning speed, at lightning speed. You have an idea, you 3D print it, you use Ruby on Rails, you put up a website, and in 2 weeks, you have something that's made that idea reality. You try, it probably isn't exactly what you wanted, you fast fail, you iterate, and damn it, very soon, through adoption, adaption, and then you become an adept, you have something that's going to change the world. It's a very different way in which innovation has started happening. So we recognize that. We promote that. 3D printing was invented 2 floors down from my office. We love that, but yet we didn't do it to ourselves. And so it should have come as no surprise when in the year 2011, MIT announced that we would be teaching a massive open online course to the world. The story behind that's somewhat romantic, I'll tell you. The then provost of MIT pulled aside one of my colleagues, Anant Agarwal, who was the head of the computer science, the very powerful computer science lab at MIT. And he said, Anant, there's some private sector companies that are starting these things called MOOCs, massive open online courses. We, as a not-for-profit, will not let education get privatized. We must go to battle. It's like a Winston Churchill moment. And they decided in December of 2011 that they would announce a MOOC. And like Cortés burning his ships when he landed in the new continent, America, so that his soldiers wouldn't pine for home, right? And they would sort of take over the continent. They decided to make the announcement because there was no going back. But I can tell you this, they had nada, they had zilch. But in the course of the next 3 months, they built a platform for teaching a course to the world. They built the content. And in spring of 2012, they launched the course. I remember asking Professor Agarwal, I would say about 3 weeks before the course was launched, I said, how many students do you expect in this online course? He said, you know, Sanjay, he was bleary-eyed, he hadn't slept like I look now. He said, sleep is overrated, by the way. So is food, anyway. He said, I hope no fewer than 5,000 because that'll be embarrassing. I hope no more than 10,000 because I will die. And he ended up with 155,000 students from 167 countries. So that June, Harvard and MIT invested $30 million each. We decided to disrupt ourselves. And we spun out classical innovation style as skunkworks, independent company. We didn't want to put it inside MIT or Harvard because we knew that the antibodies would kill it. We spun it out, and edX was formed. edX took a $60 million investment from MIT and Harvard, and now has about 55 university partners. And we've been in the news pretty much once a week, twice a week. You know, I mean, if you walk around MIT or Harvard now, you know, you see a New York Times reporter and they sort of high five and just walk on. They don't say hello to each other because we're so deeply in the news. And the reasons are what I'm going to tell you next. Why is this happening? But before I move on, I should tell you that this is not some sort of boring abstract story. There are real people here that are impacted by this crazy experiment that MIT and Harvard started. Can you tell me which country these seven young people are from? Guess. Korea? Vicky is sort of close, but not right. Same proto-ethnicity. Here's a hint. Mongolia. And these 7 people, ladies and gentlemen, these 7 young people took that first online course, and those are MIT certificates they're holding. This gentleman is MIT's only known alum in Mongolia. This gentleman nailed every course Every homework and every exam scored 100% nearly. He is now an undergrad at MIT, thanks to that online course. And he's doing very well, by the way. And that is the story about him. What happened was he was trying to build a piece of electronics to warn his sister when a truck rumbled by their house. Her little kid sister, that's the little girl there. And he had needed to learn electronics, so he found this course, he took it, and the rest is history. He's now at MIT. His name is Batushik, and the article says, the boy genius of Ulaanbaatar. We're very proud to have him at MIT. We have several students like that we've uncovered, diamonds in the rough, through this new set of tentacles that we've built out into the world. What is the impact? We have now reached, this number is outdated, it changes very fast, 3.5 million, it's almost 4 million students around the world in 2 years. We've reached 196 plus countries. Why do we say plus, you might ask? Because we have more country IP addresses than the United Nations Charter. We actually have 236 IP address designations for countries, but the United Nations Charter claims there are only 196 countries, so we sort of decided to call it 196 plus. We have 4.5 million enrollments, up to 5 now. This number is woefully out of date. We have more than 300 courses, it's nearly 380 courses, 55 university partners from around the world. India, China, Hong Kong, Japan, Europe, ETH in Europe, for example, TU Munich, TU Delft, and of course the United States, Caltech, Dartmouth, Berkeley, Harvard, MIT, obviously, McGill, and it's just a massive set of course universities, great universities around the world. I sit on the board of edX, along with the provost of MIT, the provost of Harvard, the dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences at Harvard, and we run edX as a board, but it has an independent management. Anant, the hero, the guy who launched the first course, is on a leave of absence. He's the CEO of edX. By the way, he's also an entrepreneur himself, like me, and so one of the things we like to do at MIT is bring entrepreneurship back onto campus and promote entrepreneurship on campus, because we see that as a vector for the sort of maniacal, almost foolishness you need to launch foolish projects like this. So what's a MOOC? You might say, well, online, what the hell? We've had online for a long time. In fact, the BBC did online in 1924. It was audio only. Open University has been a pioneer in online for more than 40 years. It's not videos. Videos are only a small piece of it. I'll tell you the whole story. We could have done videos 15, 20, 30 years ago with video cassettes. It is a little bit forums. I remember when I asked Anant, once the course launched, he didn't sleep for a week because he was going on forums and answering questions. Students are more used to forums thanks to Facebook and so on. In fact, there are advantages to the anonymity of forums to asking questions in this setting. What Anant discovered, though, after not sleeping for a week, after a week, he fell asleep like something in the Bible. He discovered when he woke up that students started answering each other's questions, often incorrectly, but more sympathetically. And all he had to do was wait for the right answer to bubble up and just bless it. And the trajectory was a great pedagogical experience. So forum is very important. It sort of makes the course self-healing. But the piece de resistance is automatic assessments. It is our ability to grade automatically. Basically what we have is an artificial intelligence engine, if you will, a robot professor. Professor's pretty robotic anyway, right? A robot professor that can grade instantly. And that has profound implications I'll come to in a minute. So what does it look like? Can you turn up the volume there? Those are the videos. Okay, if you could turn the volume down. This gentleman is Eric Lander. He is one of the icons of modern biology. He's a geneticist. He was involved in sequencing the human genome. His research lab is about twice the size of this building, not this room, this building, right? In fact, it's so big we had to push him out of MIT. He's a not-for-profit consortium. And he's the president, he's the head of the Presidential Advisory Council for President Obama. You could do worse than receive your biology lectures from him, right? But the great thing here, just a couple of things. There's a big, for accessibility reasons, we have text. A lot of students actually prefer to read the text. You can actually scroll down the text, click on it, and the video sort of fast forwards to that point. Here's a little cute thing. You see this? We were listening at 1.25x speed. Students actually go at 1.5x speed sometimes. But the key thing is the videos are short and sweet. They're only about 10 minutes. And we've learned, and I'll tell you why. That's what makes it work. That's very essential. An 80-minute rant isn't optimal for anyone. Now, once you take those videos, the next thing you do is you go in here and you start answering questions. Won't play for some reason. You won't, but if it had played, I would have showed you. What you do is you can actually, it can ask you questions like enter an equation. You can enter an equation. It can check if the equation is what you said, what the answer was supposed to be. It can have you do differential equations, matrix equations. You can even write small essays. It's not just multiple choice, right? This next animation doesn't show, but you could actually, there, you can see it. You draw a circuit. It'll grade the circuit. And once you draw the circuit, there's a virtual oscilloscope. It's a virtual instrument, just like video games. That's the breakthrough. So what we're able to do is not just videos, which is great. In fact, we've made a lot of progress on videos, but tie it to all the other accoutrements that make a learning experience rich. That's what makes it special. You can do simulations. Again, this video isn't playing, but you can simulate. You can move things around. You know, this is a virtual, two magnets and iron filings sort of experiment, right? You can do all these things virtually. It's a very rich experience. This stuff is catching fire. Every day we receive new evidence of how much it's taken root around the world. We recently taught a course on entrepreneurship, and we didn't know this. We got this tweet from someone. These were 200 people sitting down and taking this course together in Calcutta, India. Where they found this hangar-style auditorium, how they're self-organized, we don't know. We put it out there, and students are organizing themselves around the world. And we're the better for it, and we just love this. So this is the online piece. Now let me spend a few minutes, and then I'll end talking about, so why are we doing this? First of all, let me clarify. edX is the platform. It's the global platform. MITx is like Disney. We make the movies, the massive open online courses that play on the platform, and then we project them to the rest of the world. So MITx reports to me. I have over 100 people in my movie house, and we produce movies, these courses. We think of them as movies, by the way. Right? We think of them as production. It's a very carefully crafted thing. So that's MITx. So why are we doing this? Let me give you some background. I like to tell my students that if you look at a logo of MIT, MIT was established in 1861. And it was established with very fundamentally different principles than other universities. I like to tell my students, if you look at the logo of MIT, there's a dude with a sledgehammer in it. Why is that? Because MIT was actually established as a sort of a reaction, although we're best friends now, to Harvard. In Harvard, you had to be white Anglo-Saxon, upper-class Protestant male, and you learned science in Latin by memorization. But yet the Industrial Revolution was taking place just down the street from Cambridge, in Lowell and in Rhode Island. And there you had African Americans, Catholics, poor white Anglo-Saxon Protestant males, women who had soot on their faces and grease on their hands, and they were doing real things. William Barton Rogers, the founder of MIT, recognized that the future was high-tech. The word technology was only about 30 years old when MIT was founded. And it was a sort of a slap in the face of the system, because he decided to bring those industrial settings onto campus. And he called this new institute the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That was a shock. In fact, people thought it was everything from a brothel, don't ask me why, to a celebration of paganism, because to put science in the hands of the masses was dangerous. That was how much of a shock this was to the system, right? So for us, the key thing is we like to do stuff with our hands. But what's happened over the last few decades is, by the way, this gentleman is Valerie Jarrett's great-grandfather, our first African-American student, 1885. Valerie Jarrett is President Obama's chief advisor. She came to give a talk at MIT, and we were wondering why, because we were happy to have her. And then she told us, that was my great-grandfather. So for us, what's happened is over the last few decades, we've frankly lost our mojo. We've lost our ability to do stuff with our hands, or we've reduced it because there's so much information content to deliver, and we've sort of receded into lecture mode. And what we want to do is reclaim the labs. We want to push the lectures online. And when students come into campus, we want to build things, we want to blow things up, we want to make things, we want to do startups, we want to do field work. We want our graduates to be the sort of rock stars we're used to. And we want the time for them to have at it instead of listening passively in lectures. There's a great deal of cognitive psychology. By the way, MIT has a very advanced brain and cognitive sciences department. It is the #1 department in the world. It is the largest concentration of brain scientists in the world. There's a lot of work in cognitive psychology that actually justifies this history. The other heroes in the space are people like Maria Montessori. I was lucky as a kid to go to a Montessori school. These are people who understand that the mind, to quote Plutarch, is not an empty vessel to be filled, it is a fire to be kindled, right? And cognitive psychology is actually saying everything we've said. It's sort of confirming that the way we do teaching today is sort of broken. We need to innovate. It turns out that your brain, not your brain, this is a generic brain, but I'm happy to examine your brain afterwards if you'd like. Our brains have this thing called the hippocampus. It's called the hippocampus because it looks like a seahorse, by the way, that's the origin, not a hippopotamus. Anyway, this hippocampus is the short-term memory into which learning goes, and that thing only has about 10 minutes of room. So an 80-minute lecture, you know the whole expression about stuff coming in, going out? Correct. After 10 minutes, what you want to do is take a break. And then you know what you want to do? Is ask questions. Why? Because in that process, the brain takes stuff from the hippocampus and puts it in long-term memory. That's called retrieval learning. You can't do that in a real lecture, but you can do it online. You can make your lectures 10 minutes and have those instant questions, and that promotes the creation of online long-term memories. And then, now this is an incredible title. It's a long way of saying, if I told you a story and I just held back on the ending, and I put you in a state of curiosity, right? You're curious. At that point, when your mind is sort of open-minded, I can tell you a completely unrelated fact, and you will learn it really well. Because the brain goes into a learning state. The way we do that on campus at MIT is through project-based research. Projects invoke curiosity, and the brain goes into a receptive state. All these are ways of saying, and I have 1,000 papers, the stuff I'm talking about is actually attuned to modern cognitive science and psychology and neuroscience. So for us, online isn't just a gimmick. We're transforming the way we teach at MIT. And the adoption of courses has been amazing. On campuses, I'm sort of amazed. It's actually killing me. The number of professors who've used online has doubled every semester in the last 4 semesters. And the summary is, we go with short slices. Little videos followed by assessment. Little videos followed by assessment. And once you do 3 or 4 of those, we say, go make something, go blow something up. Right? That, in my view, in our view, is the future of education, and the students love it. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you. I'm really happy to take any questions, depending on time. And again, I can come and examine your brains afterwards if you'd like. Thank you.